a ship drifting in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. 147 passengers and crew members locked in their cabins. Multiple countries refusing to let the vessel dock at their ports. 3 people already dead. And a virus with no cure spreading quietly through the corridors. This is not a movie plot. This is happening right now. As you watch this video, the MV Hondius, a Dutch-flagged cruise ship, is making its way toward the Canary Islands after being turned away from port after port. On board, passengers are isolating. Medical teams are in full protective gear, and investigators from multiple countries are racing to understand exactly how far this virus has already spread beyond that ship. The virus is called Hantavirus, and if you have never heard of it before, pay close attention. Because what is unfolding right now in the Atlantic Ocean is not just a story about one unlucky ship. It is a warning that most people are dangerously unprepared to hear. This is not the ordinary hantavirus you may have vaguely heard about as a rodent disease in rural areas. The strain now killing people on that ship is called the Andes virus. And the Andes virus plays by completely different rules. Stay with this video until the end. Because what you are about to learn could genuinely save your life or the life of someone you love. If you want to stay informed about emerging health threats backed by real science, subscribe to this channel now. This is exactly the kind of content that matters. For decades, people assumed hantavirus was something that only happened to farmers and hikers in remote regions of South America or rural America. A rare disease, a distant threat. Something that only struck people crawling through old barns or handling infected rodents in isolated corners of the world. That assumption is now being shattered in real time. The 3 people who have died so far in this outbreak were not rural farmers. They were cruise ship passengers, tourists, people who paid for a luxury voyage to Antarctica and the South Atlantic. One of them was a Dutch couple, a husband and wife, who boarded the MV Hondius in Ushuaia, Argentina, on the 1st of April, 2026. The husband showed symptoms first. He died on board. His wife disembarked in St. Helena and was taken to a hospital in Johannesburg, South Africa. She also died. She tested positive for hantavirus. The World Health Organization confirmed on the 2nd of May, 2026, that a cluster of severe respiratory illness had been formally reported from that ship. By the 4th of May, 7 cases, 2 laboratory confirmed, 5 suspected, 3 deaths, 1 patient critically ill. The WHO described the progression as extraordinary in its speed. Fever, gastrointestinal symptoms, then rapid collapse into pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and shock. This content is for educational purposes only and does not replace a consultation with your doctor. But what you are about to hear is information every adult needs to understand right now. Here is what most people do not know. There are dozens of hantavirus strains in the world. Most of them share one critical characteristic. They do not spread from person to person. You catch them by breathing in contaminated dust from the dried urine, feces, or saliva of infected rodents. You disturb an old shed, a neglected storage room, a pile of leaves. You inhale microscopic particles. That is how most hantavirus infections happen. And because that route requires direct exposure to rodents or their environment, large outbreaks among humans have historically been extremely rare. The Andes virus is different. It is the only hantavirus strain in the world for which documented human-to-human transmission has been confirmed. Let that sink in. Scientists at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention have documented cases where this virus moved from one infected person to another through close, prolonged contact. A spouse sleeping in the same room, a family member providing care, and in a confined space like a cruise ship, with shared corridors, dining rooms, and ventilation systems, the rules of standard hantavirus containment do not fully apply. Investigators now believe at least some of the transmission aboard the MV Hondius was human to human. Argentina has previously documented a super spreader event where a single introduction of the Andes virus led to 34 infections in one community. One person, 34 cases. The index case on this ship was a Dutch citizen who spent 4 months traveling through Chile, Uruguay, and Argentina before boarding. He returned from Uruguay just 4 days before departure. He had no idea he was carrying anything. Neither did anyone else on that ship. Argentina has reported roughly 101 hantavirus infections since June of 2025. That is approximately double the caseload from the same period the previous year. Experts point to shifting weather patterns, land use changes, and expanding human activity into rodent habitats as likely drivers of this sharp rise. And here is the detail that is now alarming health authorities worldwide. Several passengers disembarked from the MV Hondius before the outbreak was identified, before anyone knew there was a problem. Those individuals returned to Australia, Belgium, France, Greece, Ireland, Japan, New Zealand, the United States, and more than a dozen other nations. They boarded planes, they went home, they hugged their families. 5 American states, California, Arizona, Texas, Georgia, and Virginia, are now actively monitoring former passengers. All are currently asymptomatic. But the incubation period for the Andes virus ranges from 7 to 39 days, with a median of 18 days. That window is not yet closed for everyone. The CDC has tracked hantavirus in the United States since 1993. Through 2023, 890 cases were recorded in that country. 35% of those cases resulted in death. If this video is giving you information you did not have before, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this content reach the people who need it most. Now, what does this virus actually do to the human body? This is where the medical reality becomes brutal. The Andes virus causes what is known as Hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome, or HCPS. The progression moves in 3 phases. Understanding them could mean the difference between survival and death. The first is the prodromal phase. It lasts 3 to 6 days. The infected person feels what seems like a severe flu. Intense headache, high fever, deep muscle aches, chills, nausea, abdominal pain, vomiting, fatigue. Nothing about these symptoms screams emergency. Most people would take medication and rest at home. That is exactly why this virus is so dangerous. The window for effective intervention is disguised as something completely ordinary. The second phase is where the Andes virus shows its true lethality. In approximately 50% of infections, the prodromal phase is followed by a sudden and catastrophic shift into what is called the cardiopulmonary phase. The patient begins to cough. Breathing becomes difficult, then labored, then desperate. The heart rate surges, blood pressure drops. The lungs begin to fill with fluid rapidly as blood vessels in the pulmonary tissue start to leak uncontrollably. This is pulmonary edema collapsing into acute respiratory distress syndrome, the same mechanism that killed patients in the early days of COVID-19, but in many cases faster, and with a higher mortality rate. From the first sign of breathing difficulty to critical collapse, the window can be as short as 24 hours. According to the UK Health Security Agency, the case fatality rate for Andes virus infection is approximately 35 to 50%. The WHO confirms that hantavirus in the Americas carries mortality of up to 50%. The CDC reports that among patients who develop the full hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, the mortality rate is approximately 38%. That means roughly 1 in 3 people who reach this stage does not survive. There is no approved antiviral treatment for hantavirus. There is no vaccine. The only intervention that improves survival is early supportive care in an intensive care unit. Oxygen, fluid management, cardiac monitoring, and in the most severe cases, mechanical ventilation. Every hour between the moment symptoms escalate and the moment a patient reaches an ICU bed is an hour this virus is operating without opposition. The third phase, for those who survive, is recovery, but it is not clean or quick. Patients who live through severe hantavirus cardiopulmonary syndrome can require weeks to months of recuperation. Some experience lasting effects on lung capacity and cardiac function, and researchers have documented that the Andes virus can persist in the body for an extended period after apparent recovery, with implications for close contact transmission that science is still working to fully understand. This is a virus that science is still actively learning about. And here is what makes the current moment particularly alarming. In 2025, the United States government eliminated funding for all 10 centers within the National Institutes of Health network that were specifically designed to study how viruses like hantavirus jump from animals to humans and potentially from person to person. The research was shut down. The teams were disbanded. Researchers who had been working on this problem have since said publicly, "We are not in a position to say that this virus, just because it has never caused large outbreaks before, does not have the potential to do so one day." Those words carry a very different weight today, as a ship drifts toward Tenerife with infected passengers on board and a virus being tracked across 5 continents. Now, the warning signs that require immediate emergency action. If you have recently been in South America, traveled on the MV Hondius, spent time in areas with known rodent activity, or had close contact with someone recently returned from those regions, and you experience any of the following, do not wait. Go to an emergency room immediately. Sudden high fever combined with severe muscle pain that comes on rapidly, particularly in the back, thighs, and hips. This is not typical soreness. This is deep, incapacitating pain that stops you from moving normally. Shortness of breath developing within days of a flu-like illness. Any breathing difficulty following fever and muscle symptoms must be treated as a potential emergency, not a coincidence. A rapid sense of pressure or tightness in the chest. The lungs filling with fluid is not a slow, gentle process. Patients who have survived describe a sudden, terrifying feeling of suffocation, a sharp drop in blood pressure, or sudden dizziness that does not resolve with rest. This signals the cardiovascular system is under severe stress, confusion, or sudden cognitive changes following fever. When the brain is not receiving adequate oxygen, behavior changes fast and without warning. The WHO and the CDC are unambiguous. Once the cardiopulmonary phase begins, every single hour matters. Get to a facility with a full intensive care unit immediately. Tell the emergency team the following words within the first 30 seconds. Possible hantavirus exposure. Give your travel history. Name the ship if relevant. That information changes how they treat you, and it can change the outcome. Share this video right now with someone who has traveled recently. This cannot wait. Here is what you need to do today. Not next week, today. First, if you were on the MV Hondius at any point in April 2026, or if you were in close contact with someone who was, contact your local health department now. Do not wait for symptoms. The incubation window is still open for some former passengers. Your health authority needs to know you exist. Second, if you live in or are traveling to areas with rodent populations, take immediate precautions. Do not sweep dry dust in enclosed spaces like sheds, garages, or attics. Wear an N95 mask and gloves when cleaning spaces that may have rodent activity. Ventilate before entering. Use bleach-based disinfectants on any surface with potential rodent contact. The virus is destroyed by proper disinfection, but it can survive in dried material for extended periods. Third, know these symptoms by heart: fever, severe muscle pain, fatigue, headache, nausea, abdominal pain. If they appear within 6 weeks of any potential rodent exposure or close contact with a symptomatic person, do not treat it as a typical flu. Go to a doctor and say these exact words: "I want to rule out hantavirus." Ask for a blood test. The test exists. Fourth, if you develop any shortness of breath within 10 days of a flu-like illness, skip the phone call. Go directly to an emergency room. The gap between the prodromal phase and respiratory collapse can be measured in hours, not days. Fifth, mark your calendar. If you or someone you know has had potential exposure, set a 40-day alert. The maximum incubation period for the Andes virus is 39 days. Monitor for symptoms every single day within that window. If anything changes, act immediately. Do not rationalize it away. Follow WHO and CDC bulletins on this outbreak. The situation is still developing. Links are in the description below. Picture this. You are sitting with someone you love. The news comes on. A story about a virus on a ship. And because you watch this video, you know what the symptoms look like. You know when to act. You know what to say at the emergency room door. You know not to wait. That knowledge, in the right moment, is not a small thing. It is everything. 3 people are dead. A ship drifted for days while port after port refused entry. Passengers who disembarked before the outbreak was detected are now being monitored across 5 continents. And the research program specifically built to understand viruses like this one was quietly shut down last year. This is not a distant threat. This is not a story about someone else. This is happening now, in the same world you live in, on the same ships people board every day. Leave a comment below. Did you know about this outbreak before watching this video? Did you know the Andes virus can spread between people? Your answer tells us whether this kind of alert is reaching the people who need it. If this information should reach more people, and it absolutely should, hit like and subscribe. This channel exists to bring you real, science-backed health information when it matters most, not after the headlines fade. Right now, while it still counts. And if someone in your life has been traveling recently, or if you know someone whose age or health makes them more vulnerable, send them this video today. Not tomorrow. Today. Because the incubation window does not wait, and neither should you. Stay informed, stay alert, and take care of the people around you.